Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
DC and then, right outside
Mm-hmm.
DC.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
the whole area.
Well,
Not as, it's nice, but not
it's just funny listening to people talk about the traffic.
as, oh, yeah. Well, it's fun. I came from New York City.
Oh, okay.
I lived outside the city, but I grew
Mm.
up in Manhattan. But the same woman does the traffic stations does it here.
No
Debbie
kidding.
Dupain.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, hopefully everyone that's here is here for the zoning board of appeals. If not, let me know. All right, a few housekeeping matters. We got some emergency exits off to the side. Also, the exit doors out and back. Restrooms are in the hallway vestibule area. If you haven't done so already, please sign the attendance sheet in the back. Applicant, developer, whoever you are, please sign. Business cards in the back table, along with the proposed resolutions. If you haven't done so already, please turn off your cell phones or silence them so as not to disturb the applicant or the hearing itself. And also, if there's any conversations that don't pertain to the application, please take it out in the hallway. Other quick notes that whether you're an applicant or someone representing the applicant, if you are talking about exhibits, then let us know what exhibits you're talking about and do your very best to use descriptive language. It makes it hard for Amber, who needs to put the minutes together, if you say, if you notice over here, if you notice over there, that doesn't translate very well when it comes down to print. Use north, south, east, or west, structure, front of the house, back house, any kind of descriptive language you can use would be very helpful. Also, we would greatly appreciate it that if you wouldn't talk over what we're saying and we won't talk over you. Again, one at a time, and I'm trying not to be rude, but if there's a lot of this over talking, I'm going to stop it and we're going to slow things down and wait for my direction, go ahead and talk or let us finish so that we can make a clear record. Okay. Next, I would like to declare Fred necessarily absent. And next, I would also like to welcome Larry, our new board member. So we have some minutes to approve. Larry won't be able to vote on that. December 4th, 2023. I would entertain a motion for approval of those minutes unless there's questions or further discussion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Leah.
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Great. All right, first is the Mr. Balone. Come on up. Oh,
Good evening.
good evening. Last time you were here, you wanted an application for a gate in
Correct.
front of your home. We had a couple of things we were working with. One thing is we asked for an instrument survey, and you provided that.
Yes.
That's great. With the proposed location of the gate. And also, I would like to note, we did receive the county comments. And just let me look at this quickly. They declared this to be a exempt. So what that means is that the county really didn't have any negative or positive things to say about it, so we can vote accordingly. Is there anything else that you'd like to add beyond what you've already said? I think we understand the purpose of the gate. I think your main point was that the gate really isn't going to change the character of the neighborhood. And if you, Susie, if we could have the criteria for the area variance posted. Okay, so there's our area variance criteria. So as you can see over there, to grant an area variance, we need to fill in those blanks. Is it going to change the character of the neighborhood? Can you achieve it by some other feasible method? Is it substantial? Is it going to create any kind of environmental impact? And is it self-created? Now, keep in mind, it's not an all or nothing. You could, for example, it could be substantial and still qualify for a granting of a area variance if the board feels that in balancing all this, really it's not going to change the character of the neighborhood and so on. Okay, does it make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, so my understanding is that your main point, really not going to change the character of the neighborhood. You've landscaped it very well, you can drive back and forth all you want, and you're really not keeping the gates closed or open. And I know I had talked before we talked about safety. It's, yeah, you can talk a little bit about it, but we need to plug in the factors on that criteria that we were looking at,
Right.
okay?
The plan, you have a plan up there, but it's an old plan. I think something
Yep, so I just don't have your updated plan in the slideshow, but they
Oh.
all have the updated plan in
oh, you
front of
do,
them.
okay. all
Yep.
right.
What, the reason why it was important for us to have this instrument survey is that now it locates, an engineer located where you'd like that gate to be.
Yes.
So we're going to keep this in our file, and should the board grant your variance, we'll keep it, and whoever puts that gate in, if it's granted, it needs to be as close as possible. You know, if it's off by an inch, I don't think the code enforcement officer is going to bother you too much. If it's off by a number of feet,
Feet, right,
that's a
of course.
different problem.
Yeah.
All right, so, there we go.
The posts are already there.
Yes, I think we've seen that.
Oh, okay, so,
So before I ask the board if they have any further questions, I wanted to give you an opportunity to, if you wanted to add anything, if you don't, then no worries.
yeah, unless there's something else you need from me, I
Well,
don't,
we may have a question for you.
Okay.
Matt, do you have any questions?
I think most of what I would say I reiterated last time. It kind of works. I know the primary purpose of this is safety and aesthetics and not wanting people to drive by down the driveway. I'm not sure this is going to accomplish that in that it's 75 feet down the driveway, right? And so is it going to cause people that do accidentally go down there to do a K-turn or to pull out? Because I'm trying to figure out, are you going to, so
it will.
they're going to have to pull out and reverse onto the road?
That's what
Or
they've
do a
been.
K-turn in your
Yeah,
yard?
that's what they've been doing, pulling them, because I think they miss Cobble Creek Road, and they pass it by mistake, and they pull my driveway, and they have to wait because they back out of my driveway.
Right.
And it's kind of a,
Yeah, so obviously it works for and against it here, right? Because if it were closer to the road, they would see it and they wouldn't turn into it. But obviously, if it's closer to the road, then you've got other issues with it being too close to the road and all
yeah,
that.
and it's on an easement also, it would be if it was too close to the road.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. If it was
Yeah.
close to the road, people wouldn't see it and go, I'm not going to pull in there. I'm going to get
Right.
stuck. I'm going to have to do a K-turn out.
Yeah,
Or I'm going to have to back
Well, that's
back
the
out
first
onto this
driveway
busy
they come
road,
to.
right?
so,
And on the safety aspect, I get it. You don't want people driving in your driveway or near the house, whatever. But I'm not quite sure you've really used all, other methods that are more feasible you could use. Like, have you called the cops on people? Have you posted things? Have you taken down driver's license numbers? And I know all of that. It seems like it's such a hassle, but there's other methods that feel like are more feasible, putting up a sign or doing something else that, instead of just putting up a full gate. And so and again, it doesn't seem like, I agree with I don't think it would be out of character of the neighborhood. I just take more of an issue of, I think there's other ways to achieve what you're trying to do. I don't think, as you mentioned before, it'd probably be open 95% of the time, I think, to quote you anyways, right?
I would think so.
How important is it really? So I guess I'm kind of on the fence leaning towards a no, just because I don't see how it's different than many other situations where, sure, people don't want other people driving up their driveways.
Yeah, I mean, I posted signs in my back lot for the golfers, 5 of them. and private property, and they still come past the hedgerow to get their balls or, well, mostly for their balls. So, I mean, signs are as good as, you know, it's almost-
I
I
get
don't
it.
think it's quite a deterrent as, you know, gates would be, but,
I get it. If you started taking license plate numbers and calling the
But,
sheriff's
yeah.
department and telling
I'm
the
not
sheriff
gonna
they
run
had
out
people
there.
trespassing, I mean, that person will probably never turn into your driveway again.
well, you know, the way I look at the gates, if I was leaving and my wife was home, I probably would shut the gates if I was gonna be gone for a few hours. I mean, I feel, right now, I lock the door when I go out my garage door. I lock it because she's home alone. And with everything going on today, the 11 o'clock news, I mean, you hear it every day. So if I can deter anybody from coming on my property and my wife's alone, I'll do it. So that's.
Understand that.
My
I under-
security is,
I
my wife's
understand-
security means more to me than a sign. The sign's not going to stop anybody.
I understand how you feel
Okay.
about that.
All right.
I'm not sure this is going to accomplish that, that's all.
Okay.
I'm okay for now. What's the,
Larry, got questions?
Yes, I'm just curious as to how many cars actually get up to the house?
Well, when I'm there,
Yeah,
I mean, this summer when I was doing my, I'm
I
sorry,
mean, by mistake, when they come into your driveway, you know, obviously. I think
a few a week, but that's when I'm there, that I can
They
see
come all
them.
the way up to the house? to
Oh,
turn
no,
around?
no. They come up to where my driveway splits.
Okay,
And they'll come up to that point there, and then they'll make a turn, and sometimes they'll go back out facing the road, and sometimes they'll back out into the road. But, you know, I'm home quite a bit, but in the summertime, do my landscaping and so, but I don't know how many times they come in and pull out. If I'm not home, I don't know.
well, I'm still new to this, but
Yeah.
don't know how the gate actually helps you stop people, because they're still going to pull into the first part and back up. I guess, and I understand the security issue because, you know,
It's my main objective, is protect my family. So if it's closing the gate, that's what I'll do.
okay,
So
thank
It's
you,
like locking your door at night. What do you lock your door for?
thank you.
You know, we got a Ring doorbell, which my wife's phone goes off, and, you know, UPS, whoever comes up the driveway, her phone rings. So sometimes we don't know who it is, because they won't answer, you know, who is it? So, you know, it's hard to say who it is. That's why we put the Ring doorbell in, so we can control, you hear it ring, you know there's some activity going on. And we have cameras in the back, the same thing. Any motions, they start buzzing.
Okay.
It's a security issue, you know.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, questions?
Sure.
When you were starting to develop the property and build your house.
Yes.
In the front, like, not where you're going to put the gate, but next to it, have you made improvements, or are they the trees that were there before? You know, did you plant more shrubbery or more trees?
I don't know if I.
Not where, like, where you propose to put your gate?
Yes.
To the sides of it, on either side, have you made improvements to the property, planting, you know, more shrubbery or bushes?
Yeah, I put a bunch of trees and bushes and some rock walls,
Okay,
you know, compared to what was there. I took down
Right.
a block garage, we'll say a 6-car garage.
Right.
Was like a garage in a barn. I took that down probably close to where the new driveway is. And, but, yeah, I
Yeah, so
put quite a
you-
few plants and trees and
Right.
try to do something nice there.
right, so you've made improvements to
Yes.
make the property look a
Oh,
lot
God,
nicer
yes,
than what it was,
yes.
and I've seen your house, it's a beautiful house.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
I have to say that. And, you know, I just wanted to make a comment based on what one of my other colleagues said. I think we all know that, you know, that there still will be some people that'll, you know, pull in and turn around right
There's
away.
No question about it.
But this is also to prevent them from coming too close to your house.
Right.
Because even where the gate is, it's not too close to the road.
No.
But it's a good distance from the house, so that at least will deter people from coming too far into the property and to like make that turn where you're circular, you know, like it's a little circular,
Right.
because you did mention that
It was
last
like a
meeting.
turnout, like, you know, even
Right.
for my guests.
Right,
You know, if somebody's coming down the driveway and somebody's coming in, you got a place where you can detour and
right.
kind of bypass.
Right, and that's fine for you and your guests.
Right.
And somebody who, you know, I would think that somebody's pretty rude to do that, to turn around, but I know some people would do that, and this way that deters people
Right.
from doing that. And I think for a safety issue, I'm not even talking about your safety now, but having it so many feet from the road is even a safety for the people turning. Because at least they go in a little further, they see they can't get further, so they have to
Right.
back up to get back out. So it's not like if somebody was even dumb enough to see the gate but still try to turn there, at least it gives safety for everybody.
Yes.
You know, that there's no accident, and I think that's one thing we want. But you've made a lot of nice improvements to the property, and I feel that this gate will not make it look less nice.
I don't
You
believe
know,
so.
I think it'll look very nice, and because it matches the house, and you have all those new plantings on the side, which give it a nice look, and you put some stoning there.
I'm
so.
still not done, but we're getting
Right, right.
close.
Right,
Yeah,
yes,
getting
yes.
close.
Yeah, and you know, and I feel it can't be achieved by another mean for, you know, for all purposes.
I don't think anything that would look nice. Signs, cones, that's kind of, you know, when I was under construction, yeah, you could have I had cones all over the place. And I had signs all over the place, but I think now with the finished product, you want something a little classier,
Yes,
something that's gonna look good with everything I did. I mean, with the stones and all the evergreens and the rock walls and the flagpole and just everything. I think everything with the gates would blend in.
blended, yes, yes.
And it would look very natural in the setting that it's in. I think putting a cone or a sign out there was like, you know, don't have your dog walk on my property. It's like,
Right,
it just wouldn't
right,
appeal to me anyways.
right, yeah, I agree with you on that, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, Susie, could I have the criteria back up again? All right, thank you. So, looking at the criteria, let me ask you, because your concerns, your primary concern for the gate, I think the last couple of questions seem to be safety, security.
Right.
I'm asking you, is
Yes.
that what it is? Is that your
Yes,
prime?
yes, it is.
Okay, so what I'm having difficulties is where that plugs in to first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. It could be the second, that your intent, what you want, what you're trying to achieve is
Right,
for security.
right.
I don't want to go down that hole again. I think we got it. It's cars and whatnot. So is that fair to say, Matt, that where your questions and you're on the fence with it, on the security and the safety, that's really
Yeah,
the
'cause
best place for those facts to go into is the second one. Is that fair to say?
Where safety would fall into?
Yes. Because it doesn't fall into the first one.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Is a method to achieve what he's trying to
Okay,
accomplish.
all right. Larry, where are you on this, the safety piece of it? Do you find that it's significant enough that it falls into the second category and he really has other alternatives, feasible alternatives to accomplish what he's trying to intend?
Well, I guess my opinion is that the gate only blocks a car from coming up. It does not stop someone from parking before the gate and then coming up to the house. And so I don't know, I mean, other than avoiding having a car come up directly to your house, which is a level of security, it's not as much security as having a fence all the way around the house. If you follow what I'm saying. I mean,
I'm sorry.
If I come up, if I'm going to try, if I'm coming to your house,
To harm us?
Right.
Okay,
the gate stops me from driving up to your house.
right.
If I drive to the gate, I can walk up to your house, which is not really very far. So does that give you enough security by not having the car come up?
Well,
As opposed to being able, to, I mean, if I'm really wanting to
do something.
do something, I probably won't even park in your driveway. I'd just,
Unless you're very determined,
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, you're right, you park your car on the road and walk up the
Mm-hmm.
grass. But I think if most people, if they see a gate and it's closed, they'll figure, well, he has some kind of security there, could be cameras, it could be a gun in the house, it could be something that they know I got a gate there for a reason. And I think mentally it would make them think, maybe I should go to the next house that doesn't have a gate.
Let me try this, right? I
Okay,
think,
I'm sorry.
I'm trying not to belabor the point. What
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out here from your vantage point is how important is that? Because I think what the board, these three board members are trying to tell you is, you are saying that the gate is providing you with some type of security, some type of safety. Is that right?
Yes.
But I think they're
it
also
would.
telling you that there's other ways to do it. And the gate really isn't going to get you the security, the safety that you're looking for. So what I'm now looking for then is, hold on one second, what I'm trying to figure out is, how does that balance against the first criteria that the gate really doesn't change the character of the neighborhood? Or does it?
To me, the weighting on the second one is higher
Okay.
than the others. The other part too is I struggle to find what's necessarily unique about it. Good example, say my 100-foot driveway, long driveway. If it makes me feel safer to put a gate there, whether the gate is a false sense of security or not, am I entitled to put a gate there? Is every house entitled to put a gate on their driveway
If they feel that's
because they feel
secure.
it makes them feel safer? That's normally, I mean, we normally have situations that are unique, right? We'll take it, whether it's putting a shed too close to your property line, and it might have to go there because of the topology of your yard. It's the absolute only place the shed could go. Otherwise, it's on a hill or it's where there's normally water. And that's something unique. We don't just, do what feels nice or good and just give it to the applicant. There has to be something unique about it to go against what the code allows you to do. So that's kind of where I struggle a little bit, is if it's just the safety case, whether, and I don't want to debate whether it's safe or not. You feel it'll make you
I
safe, so it'll
feel-
make you safe in your opinion.
Myself-
But if that's the only thing, everyone else in the community could just come up and say, well, it makes me feel safe. I just want to have a gate in my driveway.
Well, that would be their opinion. We've been married 61 years, and when I leave the house in the morning, and I leave for, say, half a day or a day, and I know she's not gonna go out, or if she goes out, she's gonna have to open up that gate and then close it if she feels necessary. I feel when I leave, I feel secure. So whatever, I mean, I have to live with myself and knowing that if my gate would prevent some harm from my wife, then I'll do it. If I have to have a gun on my bedside because I feel secure at night, I lock my doors. I mean, I'm gonna take, today, I mean, just you look at the 11 o'clock news, you get, and the older you get, the more afraid you are of your health and your wife's health or your husband's health. And that's where I am now. 20 years ago, I wouldn't consider it. I had a place in Greece that we were 1,000 feet off the road, long driveway, didn't have gates. And that was a place, just like you said, about 900 feet, you would have gates, but I didn't. But then I was ill, 27 years old. You take on the world. So today, I can't take on the world. So,
Yes. So my interpretation from last time, when we discussed this, and also this time, it's not so much the I mean, we know that if a fence all around the property, that's a bigger deterrent, but I didn't get the feeling that you really wanted it for that type of deterrent, because we know if, we know the way things are. If somebody really wants to come and rob a house, they're going to do it.
Exactly.
It's just my understanding and my interpretation of what you said, it's really just to deter vehicles from coming on the property, and maybe because those vehicles come close to the house, maybe even accidentally hit you or your wife if you're walking out. That's the way I understood it, not that it's going to deter any nefarious person from coming on, because like I said earlier, if somebody really wants to come into someplace, they're going to find a way. A gate or a fence is not going to deter them. It's just to prevent any traffic mishaps that potentially could happen on your property if somebody is coming and turning around, and especially because if somebody's coming on a strange property and they don't know where they are, they might not be watching or knowing the configuration and might be looking somewhere else, and then can accidentally hit somebody or knock something or smash into something that then causes a bigger accident, which can run into a liability issue. That's the way I'm interpreting it. Not so much that somebody then will go there and rob it, because that can happen to all of us. And we're all not going to put up gates in front of the house or
course not.
fences, because we know that's not going to 100% deter anybody. So that was just my interpretation of what I saw, and I just wanted to bring that up.
What? I'm sorry.
Do you
Oh.
wanted to comment on that?
Yeah, well, I think the gates have many purposes here. Okay, I don't think it's a bunch of things. People come up the driveway, they don't know the driveway, they pull off and they go over the grass. Or they'll hit a tree or whatever, I got a great-grandson. He's gonna start walking, he's almost a year. If he's home, my granddaughter's there, and for some stupid reason something happens, well, if he's there, I will shut those gates
Right.
for that one purpose, so at least won't allow the cars to come up, and I
Right.
feel,
Why wouldn't you put a sign in the middle of your driveway, right by the road,
right?
right, or close, that says something, and is right in the middle of your driveway?
It's
Then
not
nobody
gonna-
pulls, I mean, because unless I'm wrong, what's happened to date is people accidentally pull into your driveway. No one's pulled in there for any nefarious purpose.
No, just to back out, yeah.
If you put it right near the road, as close to the road as you legally can put a non-structure sign, don't you think that would cause less people to pull in if they'd have to drive over the sign to get into your property?
Not to laugh, but,
It's okay, I mean.
no, I'm just thinking when you said I put signs on, reflective signs at either side of my driveway, so I can see at night when I come in. They were both knocked down by the plow or whatever. I had to bend them back up. So I just
I'm
think,
saying, like, sometimes we'll put like it's a stop sign that's got a heavy rubber
Oh,
base or
yeah, yeah,
something,
yeah.
right in the middle of your driveway, right near the end of it.
do I really
Someone
want
will
to do
not pull
that?
into that. I don't see how someone would run that over.
I-
Might get knocked over by a snowplow.
Stop.
What?
Please stop.
Yes.
Remember what I said?
Yes.
Let him
I'm
finish
sorry,
talking.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And we are
I
being
apologize, I'm
No,
sorry.
no, it's okay.
No, I'm just,
I'm just going down as we're talking about the second
Right.
criteria in other feasible methods, right? If you came here and you said, I've tried it a dozen times, they get stolen, they get run over. Like if you had the objective evidence that said, I've tried all that. But I'm telling you, if people are just driving down there, and look, there's no guarantee I'm not gonna get whacked on my way to the car after this thing by a car in the parking lot either. I can't put a fence around me every place I go. We all take a certain amount of risk. I just feel like the risk of getting struck by a car on your own property that accidentally went down your driveway is just out there for me. It's the same scenario we all have, that all of us landowners that have a driveway, and a car could turn around in it. So I'm just struggling to find what's unique about it, and the whole safety case just doesn't feel like you've gone through other reasonable, and I'll stop now, other reasonable methods before you got to the fence. I do have one question for code enforcement. If the gate's not closed, and it's just open, is it really just landscaping at that point? Is it really a fence? Is it a gate?
Yeah, because it exists, so, you know, It exists, so it's that's why it was reviewed as an accessory structure and not as a fence.
Because if he wants it to look good, just like landscaping, and it was just a gate with a stone wall, is it a fence or is it landscaping?
If it was just two stone pillars,
Mm-hmm.
it would just be landscape. Gate makes it an accessory structure.
Even though it's open and not
If it was
just
locked,
open?
if it was impossible to close, sure.
Yeah.
Would two
So
pillars?
you could still have it for
and-
aesthetic reason. If he had it and it was just open for aesthetic reasons and it doesn't close, would you consider it a fence? I'm just trying to also not propose, but discuss in case this doesn't move forward, does the applicant have other means of just at least meeting two of the important things he talked about, which is safety and aesthetic purposes? Would he be able to use the structure for aesthetic purposes, not enclosure in a gate, as a gate?
In my opinion, yes.
I'm all set.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the gist of what just went on.
So the definition of a gate within the town code includes something that encloses or prevents passage or movement of people or things. If your gate is open, it's not a gate, right? And all I'm saying is that, and I'm just reading the board here a little bit, but you've already started, it's already there for the most part. You've got it, you've already started construction of it on either side. And all I'm saying is, two of your correct things that you wanted to get out of this were safety and aesthetics. If you ultimately didn't go with the safety and you just wanted it for aesthetic purposes, that gate, that thing, just being open permanently is no longer a fence. It can't be closed, it's gotta be permanently open, but you'd be able to just reuse it for aesthetic purposes around your house. And that's all I'm saying.
Let me
I'm
ask you
trying
this,
to-
Matt. Would your opinion change if he just said, take safety out of the equation? It's just aesthetics. I think the gate is pretty.
He wouldn't have to
Handsome.
be here.
Wait, let me finish. It's pretty, it's handsome. I want to open it, I want to close it, it looks nice, there's other gates up and down County Road 9. It's just aesthetics. I just like how it blends into my house. Would your opinion change?
I would be against it. I would be for what code enforcement officer said. If the gates could not close to make it a fence, then I'd be okay with it. It'd be landscaping and he wouldn't be in front of us today. That's what they just said. If
I don't think
doors-
that's what he said, but
Hold on, if those doors couldn't close,
I'm,
and it was as proposed, and not being able to close and fence something in, it wouldn't be a fence and he wouldn't be here today. It would be landscaping.
If that was what he was after, yes, that would just be landscaping.
even if they could close, if all he wants, if it's a functional gate, it closed, it opened, it's wrought iron, he just wants it for aesthetic purposes. I like how it looks. I like how it blends into my home. I
I'd be
have other,
against it. I'd be against it.
why? How does, if his, then you got to point to
Because
some
it's-
other.
I'll say I'm against it.
Let me
because-
finish, please. Then it has to fit into some of the criteria, then it would change the character of the neighborhood, it's substantial, it's gonna, how does that fit in the criteria?
I'd say it's substantial, and then also number two, you could be achieved by some other method, and that some other method would be, make sure the gate doesn't close. Then it's not a gate, and it's not a fence.
Okay, I'm a little perplexed on the rationale, but that's your opinion, it's fine.
No, well, the code says we can't have a fence in our front yards.
It's not a fence, it's a gate. If
But
it
it-
were a fence, it would be a completely
needs
different
to-
argument.
We're
And
here-
and Adam's nodding his head, it's a different argument if it was a fence. This is just a gate.
It's reviewed,
As a gate.
there's no definition for gate in the code book. There's a definition for fence that this doesn't necessarily fit into, so the application, I reviewed it as an accessory structure. He's here for a variance for accessory structure forward to the front line of the home, not fence. Fence code is completely different. He would need a variance for the height, all sorts of stuff. But in my opinion, as the code enforcement officer, it's an accessory structure because it opens and closes. It's not just landscaping. Landscaping is aesthetics only, has no purpose other than to look pretty.
Right.
As Matt, as this application sits and as he's presented facts to us, you would say it would change the character of the neighborhood. He can achieve it by some other method. It is substantial.
Yeah.
So he fails on those first three.
Correct. Yes. If it's a structure, yes.
Okay, so I need, eventually, we're going to frame a resolution, so I need to know where everybody sits in it. Larry, where are you in those first three criteria as far as, is it going to change the character of the neighborhood? Can he achieve it by some other means, and is it substantial?
Let me just ask one question
Sure,
first.
sure.
What is an accessory structure? Obviously, this is an example of an accessory structure. But what kinds of things are accessory structures?
Accessory structure or use is a subordinate structure or use customarily incidental to and located upon the same lot occupied the main structure, which is his home in this case.
Okay. I guess I reside more on number two, where I think something else can be done instead of this. And to me, it is substantial. It's a pretty big structure.
The gate in of itself is substantial. It's not the distance from the road, it's the gate itself.
gate itself.
And that's where you sit, Matt?
If we're only looking at this from wanting it for aesthetics, I would say that, again, the benefit can be achieved differently.
We got that
Right.
point. What I'm trying to
And
get at is number three.
Substantial in size and
Okay, so it's not the distance from the road, it's the gate in of itself, the size of the gate that your opinion is substantial.
sure.
Okay. Leah, where are you on those first three criteria?
Well, the first one, no, it would not produce an undesirable change in the neighborhood, and the benefit cannot be achieved by another means. And substantial, to me, that's either way. It's a substantial change, but I don't think it's a big, I don't think it's like a big ask. Because
Okay.
the house, it fits in with the house, because the house is a big house, it's a big footprint on the property, and the gate isn't that big of a footprint. I think it flows nicely with the way the house looks.
Thank you, that helps. Before I go any further, anybody from the public want to speak for or against the application? Okay. If, we can do this a couple of different ways, because if I read the board correctly, and if we craft the resolution, I think you're going to have 2 for, 2 against, which doesn't do you any good, all right? We have a 5-member, we're missing one, he's out sick today, so we could vote on it, and you could take that chance on the vote coming to your favor. If it doesn't, you have a period of time that you have to wait before you can reapply, and I believe it's a year. If you say, you know what, I would like to have that other board member here because that's going to be, I think, the deciding vote. So if you're not in a big rush for it, I would encourage you to say, yes, I want that other board member here, and we'll take a vote again. The meeting should be shorter, we have all the facts in front of us.
Well, the way I look at it, I'm 81 years old. I don't have a lot of time. So to postpone it another year means.
No, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That would be February 5th.
I won't
Just
be-
another
I-
meeting.
Yeah, I won't be here. We're gone for a couple months. So I wanted to get things resolved. That's why I was here around November something and had to get the plot plan and try to hurry that along.
I understand that.
So I think I'm
When are you
going
coming back in town?
first week in April.
Okay. So we still could hold it over until the April meeting, and we're sure to have, I will do everything I can to have everybody here, because I think you're going to need all 5 board members here
Oh,
to vote, because as I see it, it's probably going to be 3-2. I can't tell you which way, because I don't know how the board member's going to vote.
so
As it sits right now, it sounds and it feels like it's going to be a tie, and that's not good for you, if you want this to go through.
Can I go with the tie tonight and then wait until April for the tiebreaker?
No, sorry.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way. I'm very sorry. We're
Yeah.
doing what we can. There's a lot of facts in front of us. But you have presented your primary concern is
Safety.
safety, security.
It
all right? And
definitely
that's
is.
fine.
That's primary.
Sorry what they are.
And to me, that supersedes everything else.
So be it.
So, I mean, that's my opinion, and your board has their opinion, but,
That's
I mean,
absolutely
for me to put a sign in the middle of my driveway, say, do not enter, or whatever, and I got a couple $1 million into that property, I think the gates would be a nice
Understood.
add-on and fit in with the property, so.
I need an answer from you because there are some other applicants here
Oh,
who've
yeah,
been
yeah.
waiting patiently.
What do you
So how do you,
You want
Okay.
to wait? You want to wait?
okay, and you're certainly.
She's the
welcome.
boss.
Smart man. If you have other things, you most certainly can present them again, but I think we have everything that we need.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't, I got,
All right, very
Yeah.
good. So we're going to hold this over until the April meeting.
when is that? I'm sorry.
I don't have that date in front of me, but I will definitely email Sandra.
Okay,
and
all
let her
right,
know.
that's fine,
Okay?
because we'll be back the first week in April.
April 1st. Okay, what's the- And you said you get back April 6th,
Yeah, something like that.
April 15th.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay?
Sure.
All right, wherever you are, safe travels. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you thank you all
Thanks.
very much.
Have a good trip.
All right. Next is Mr. Hellinger.
How you doing?
Hey, wow, you popped up. I didn't even see you do that. Good. Okay, county comments. As I thought that they really do this a class one as well. One second, I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah. Okay, so it's exempt. So what that means is, they didn't have anything for or really against it we really need to consider. What that means for you is, you don't need a supermajority. So majority of a 5 is 3, plus 1 is 4, so everything goes is in your favor, then you should get a variance. But we need to go through just a couple of things. So what we have is, due to, I guess would be an engineering faux pas.
Yeah.
They put it a little too close to the rear lot line. And you need, let's see. Okay, do you remember what the number is for me?
1.7 or 1 foot 7 inches, is that?
Sounds about right.
Or is it that they measured from the foundation and then you have the bump out for the?
Well, actually, the
Fireplace.
foundation for the fireplace goes all the way down. So what they did is they pinned the 2 outside corners of the back room there, and instead of where the foundation actually went around the fireplace. But I think Adam said it doesn't matter anyways, because it goes off of, even if there was no foundation under it, it still goes off of the actual bump
Farthest
out.
bump
So-
out, yeah.
That's right. Got other questions, comments, concerns? Larry?
I think, as I read the minutes from the last meeting, there was a question about whether the property owner in back of him was contacted.
Right, Jack Dianetti,
I haven't heard anything from Jack
did you
Dianetti.
try?
Yeah, I'm in emails with him. I tried reaching out to him. I haven't heard anything back.
Okay, and they've been put on notice, so if they had some issue with it, whether it be Jack Dianetti, the golf course itself, they had an opportunity to be heard, and we haven't heard anything.
Okay, I'm fine.
Leah?
No questions.
All right. Anyone from the public want to speak for or against the application? All right, hearing none. We have an instrument survey. You're looking for 1.7 feet. House is already constructed, right? Everything's all in place. You just
Yep.
need the variance. All right. So if we walk through the criteria, first one being an undesirable change would not be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties created by the granting of an area variance. 1.7 feet that abuts the rear is the golf course. Golf course and/or Jack Dianetti have been put on notice. We haven't heard from them. Hard pressed to say that's going to change the character of the neighborhood when you really can't see it from the road itself. Would anyone like to add or comment on the first criteria?
Other than it's 1 feet 7 inches.
What did I say?
Right, 1 foot 7 inches.
I think so. So the house was supposed to be set at 41. I can't think off the top of my head how,
This 40 is required and you're at
It's
9 inches.
1.7 feet.
1.7 feet.
Right, which is 1 foot, little less than 9 inches. It's in decimal feet.
Yeah, no, I
It's not in
understand that.
feet and
Okay.
inches.
So it's, all right.
So to word the resolution, 1.7 feet would satisfy and make it clear? All right. Any other comments, concerns, questions for the first criteria? Second, the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. House is already constructed. The applicant has indicated in a prior meeting that it was an engineering error in the placement of it, and 1.7 feet, as said in the first criteria, seems rather small. Anyone want to add or comment on the second criteria? Third, the requested area variance is not substantial. 1.7 feet in and of itself is not substantial. Anyone want to comment or add on the third criteria? Fourth, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. We haven't heard anything in regards to that amount the applicant is asking for would create any kind of physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Anyone like to add or comment on the fourth criteria? Fifth, the alleged difficulty is self-created. Does the board want to add or have any conditions for the resolutions as read? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
You, a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried, good luck, thanks so much for your patience.
thank you.
Mr. Andres?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Dirk Endress, and I'm applying for area variance for an 8-foot fence, and so thanks for your consideration.
Hey, you are looking for, let's say one section, but an 8-foot fence. I need to find my compass direction here. That would be on the south side of the house, is that right?
That's correct. Just the southern property line, one side. No returns, straight shot.
I guess the nutshell version is, there's an issue with the neighbor. Is that it? And the cameras are pointing and, okay.
Yeah, I have some supplemental information if you'd like to see it, but it's two main issues that we're struggling with the neighbor, which I included in my application, but I have additional information, police reports, things like that. So my wife and I built this home in 2014. We lived there with our two kids, 5 and 7, very young, and our 3-year-old dog. We loved the previous 2 owners, but recently a new owner moved in, and that's when the problem started. The 5th criteria, self-created, definitely not self-created.
All right, if I can just stop you a second. It's
Yeah.
not them creating, it's you. Whether you have created the situation.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I'll give background on why I don't think I've created this
Okay,
situation.
all right,
Yeah, yeah.
fair enough.
So, and I'm kind of elaborating more on my 5 factors that I submitted.
Okay,
So we've had no issues with the previous 2 owners. They had a dog, they had young kids. We were really good friends with them. The new owners moved in, and the first issue was a very vocal dog. Dog barks all hours of the night. Woke my children up, woke my wife up. It had been going on for quite some time, over a year. So we hoped that they would be better dog owners over time. Didn't get any better. And it stopped me if I'm getting too in-depth, but it's just more history. So my wife went and talked to the one property owner and asked what their plan was to reduce the barking. We let them know it was really unacceptable to be barked at every time we went outside of our house, when we came home, during the middle of the night. When the neighborhood kids came over and played in our yard, the dog barked at all the kids. And the woman responded they didn't really have an issue, or they didn't really have a plan to reduce the barking. There was no plan. So my wife offered to have their dog meet our dog and our children. Maybe that would reduce the barking. So we brought our children over to the fence, brought our dog over to the fence. The dog immediately took an aggressive posture, growled, hair raised. We backed away. We knew that wasn't going to be the solution. So we let that continue to go on. And then on December 16th, at 4:40 in the morning, our house was awoken by the dog barking again. So I went outside on my deck, and I asked the neighbor who was outside, "What are you doing at 4:40 in the morning letting your dog bark?" It woke up my entire house. His response, yeah, it was profanity laced. My question was, "What were you doing?" And he responded with the F word multiple times and said, "Call the cops." So I obliged him, and I called the Ontario County Sheriff. He stopped by, talked to me. I informed him of the town code, which is 148-6. You guys, you're aware of it, but the whole idea of deliberate creation or allowance of sounds that disturb the ambient quiet beyond the property line of the premises upon which the sound was created. So could you please go tell them to quiet their dog down? We're tired. The officer went over and talked to the owner, came back to me and said, "No longer speak to them." He must have a good reason, but he advised me never to speak to them, and if there's an issue, call the sheriff. By the way, now there's 2 dogs. They got a second dog. So that's gotten worse. The second issue, which is even more egregious, is a surveillance camera, and I included that in my article too, but I also have additional pictures showing why I think a 6-foot fence would not be adequate, and if you'd like to see them, I would be happy to give them to you, but they installed a surveillance camera pointing at our home. There's only one camera in the house, and it's on their house pointing at our home. So a couple days after I saw the camera installed, I went over and talked to the owner, and I said, quote, "Would you consider relocating the camera so it focuses more on your property? A solution could be putting it on a pole on the fence, pointing at your own home, which you want to surveil." His response was, again, a profanity-laced tirade where he called me a mother effer, called my wife's names, and said, "Call the cops." And so I obliged. So I called the Ontario County Sheriff again. This was actually on the 11th of November. He came, again, similar story. Please don't talk to them. If there's an issue, just call the sheriff. So we're proposing an 8-foot fence because I've taken pictures of a 6-foot step ladder where the fence would be, and the camera is just, the fence is going to be far too short to give us any type of privacy. And I'd like to ask you to put you in my shoes, where every time you step outside, every time you're playing on the slip and slide with your children, they have a camera trained on you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't know if it's pan or tilt, but in my variance application, I showed the facade of my house. It's our bedroom, our bathroom, and our family room on that side of the house. And they've now changed the camera to even focus more on our home. It's only pointing at our home. This is why I'd like an 8-foot fence.
All set?
I am.
Okay. Leah, questions?
Well, you're proposing an 8-foot fence. Have you thought about, and I don't know the name of those hedges, but they're those skinny hedges, and where I used to live, my neighbor in the backyard had it, and actually that property sloped up a little, and unless you, and they got old, but unless you went through, then you could see through them, but they grow high, and they grew so dense that you can't see, you hear a little bit, but not too much. So have you thought of that?
We have. Are you referring to arborvitaes that grow very tall?
Yes, that's it, thank you.
If you visit our neighborhood, there's no arborvitae that has vegetation below 6 feet because of the deer. Yeah, so if you drive around Waters Cove, everyone has deer fencing around the arborvitae, but they've already been chewed from the ground up. So we can't actually grow plants in our back deck because of the deer, and we're okay with that. We moved into a suburb, we accept that. So that was one of the things I considered in the 5 factors was alternative means. So they already have a fence, a pool fence, so there's no privacy there. And they did try to plant arborvitaes, but, they're like this tall. So it really doesn't provide any visual or sound barrier for the dog or for the camera. So natural vegetation is a good idea. I just don't think it'll fulfill the same function as a privacy fence.
Because also where I had used to live, and it was 2 doors down, but new people bought it, but there were arborvitaes and maybe some other things. The new people had a dog, and that dog used to bark, and eventually, I don't know what happened to the dog, and they eventually took those plantings down and put a fence like this. I don't know if it was above 6 feet, probably not. But once they took down all the trees, you heard even more noise. And then
Yeah.
a little further away was a schoolyard, and you really heard that, whereas when all those plantings were there, it really muffled the sound. I mean, not that the sounds bothered, but you really heard it. And that's why I'm thinking the plantings would, and it will take a couple of years before they grow tall, and then you can also get them buy them at various sizes, because I remember my neighbor did that. But that muffles the the sounds, and also because of the size, and they're dense, that is gonna, I think, provide better privacy than the fence. That's,
So your opinion is a natural barrier would provide
think so.
better visual
I think
blockings than
so.
a fence?
I think so.
Typically, I can see through juniper, spruce, arborvitae, pretty much any plants you can see through. And if you plant them too close together, they're going to snuff each other out. So you have to space them. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if I necessarily would agree that natural vegetation would give you a better visual barrier. But I will note, since there's already a fence on their side of the line, and they've planted very, very small arborvitae on their fence, those should survive because the deer can't get to them. But in my mind, and to your point, that would muffle the dog barking at our vinyl privacy fence, because that won't reverberate off the fence, because there is a little natural vegetation on their side. So it's almost like 2 solutions. The plants would help muffle that barking coming off our fence if we got one.
now with the,
Larry, questions?
So there's already a fence between the two of you?
There is. I have pictures of it, yeah.
How tall is that fence?
It's a pool fence, so it's what, under 5 feet, I think, 40-some inches, 48
48.
inches? Yeah.
And help me understand how 2 additional feet help.
May I distribute these? Would you like to see them? I know that it won't be recorded, but. So I've taken pictures and noted the various locations where I took the pictures, and the stepladder is a 6-foot stepladder. I've also indicated the location and height of the camera. I took pictures at my 1-car garage, my 2-car garage, at my back deck. And this is, you can see the height of that ladder would be the top panel of a 6-foot fence.
The fence immediately behind it's a 4-foot fence, and the ladder looks to be about the same height. Am I looking at the picture wrong? So that looks like the ladder is maybe a 5-foot ladder.
It's a standard 6-foot A-frame step ladder from Werner.
Okay, it must just be the perspective, because the 48-inch fence directly behind it looks to be almost the same height.
Yep, and their land rises, so their plot plan was raised when they installed the fence. And so that's what I was trying to point at, is the top of the ladder is the same elevation as their patio around their pool. So we're really not going to get any visual break with a 6-foot fence. 8-foot will help, of course it won't block them out entirely, but again, it's more the camera that we would prefer to block. It's very unsettling being surveilled in your own home and property. And then I also have a picture in there which is at my rear property stake, my survey mark. So the fence would run from that mark directly east to the front face of our main structure. So it would be not as proud as our main structure, about 171 feet, and it would end about 65 feet in from the road. And then the last pictures I show on the last page is a date of the installed camera in November, and then they repositioned it to face my entire home now. So they changed it to take less focus of their property and more on mine.
So if you get the variance and you build an 8-foot fence, what's to say they won't put the camera up higher and you'll have to come back and ask for a 10-foot fence?
Good question. So in New York State, they have unlawful surveillance laws. And at that point, when they raise their camera above my fence, they're only looking at my bedroom, and then I can say that's voyeurism. And now I can prove it because I have the location documented by an officer of the law of where that camera was originally put. If they raise the camera, I can now take legal action.
But you can't now.
I cannot because I can't prove voyeurism yet. I can't prove they're viewing in my bedroom. I don't know how I would. That's what the officer told me. He can't do anything right now because I can't prove voyeurism, which is the unlawful surveillance. It's really for if you remember, the dressing rooms and cameras in dressing rooms. That's really what the law is for. But it also is, in this case, if a camera is pointing at a bedroom or a bathroom, it applies.
How far is it from their fence to the corner of your house or to the side of your house? Seems like quite a distance.
So I'm looking at the plot plan. The driveway is 30 feet off from the edge of the garage, and that's a side entry garage. Again, we did that for privacy. And I would say from the driveway to the edge of their fence, they put it right on the line. Grass maybe 10 feet. Kind of where my red hashed line ends
Yeah.
is not much grass between the driveway and the edge of the property line. Also, if I may, they've already chosen to erect things taller than. This is their attempt at. So I would believe they would enjoy an 8-foot fence, honestly. When you use snow sleds and tarps and sun umbrellas for privacy, I think a vinyl privacy fence would be more professional.
Any other questions, Larry?
No, I do not.
Matt?
How far from the camera to your house?
feet?
70 feet, maybe?
So your fence, the code enforcement mentioned that's a 4-foot fence, so really your fence would be twice as high. is the existing fence that's there, right?
Yeah, if that's I don't know the exact height of that fence. It's a pool fence, so whatever's the bare minimum, 48 inches.
44, but
44,
the fence
okay.
is 48.
Okay.
So it'd be like two of those stacked on top of each other for purposes of just giving a visual, probably about the height of the camera. How, with their fence being on the property line, how does that work? Is there gonna be a gap between the two fences?
And that's consistent with the neighborhood. So there's already vinyl fences that
There's
back up
just
to each
two.
other, and nothing grows in between. Yeah.
I think most of the questions I had were already asked. You know, it's a very interesting situation that you have,
Very unfortunate.
for sure, and unfortunate. I don't know if you're doing the right thing by getting it documented and going through the process. In terms of having to have an 8-foot tall fence, and so you believe that 8-foot tall fence would obstruct your backyard from that camera? Or it would just, I mean, the camera's, I know what kind of camera it is. It's not like it's you're not looking too far with that thing. But is it going to be, is it high enough in your opinion then to obstruct what you need it to obstruct, and to, on Larry's point, you're not gonna want a 10-foot fence after you put it up and go, oh, I can still kind of see the camera. They might, 8-foot fence would suffice.
It's the highest I can go.
But would it suffice?
I don't know.
When you say
the-
it's the highest you can go, what do you mean by that? I mean, you could find a 10-foot fence or 12-foot fence.
The 5 quotations I received from my vendors, they're not going to offer anything higher than an 8-foot fence.
Have you thought of berming it?
I did think of that.
Berm there, you could then put a 8-foot fence or 6-foot fence on top of a 3-foot berm.
Yeah,
That kind of stuff.
that could be another solution. I mean, if and when they move, we would consider pulling the fence, honestly. And we're using piles. It's so easy to take out.
There's drainage there. You got to be careful building berms. You can't obstruct. If you look at the grading plan, all the water sheets across his backyard. You can't build a berm and obstruct.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I remember you stopped out when they were building the pool, and I had concerns about them raising their plot plan and the water being more dynamic and washing my property away.
okay. So that might not be an option then. So if a berm isn't an option because of the topography, I'd also say that's something unique in my opinion that isn't an option that you have, right? An option that some people might have would be to build a berm and put a 6-foot fence that's compliant. You don't have that option.
Yeah, it is a good idea, though. Yeah. Thought of that one.
All set for now.
Okay. After everything I've heard, and especially your last comment, I'm not entirely convinced an 8-foot fence is going to solve your problem. So let's start with that. The other is, and I take it very seriously when someone comes in and whether they actually believe they're telling the truth and they have no intention on lying, I have no way of knowing what you've just told me about what your neighbor said, dropping F-bombs all those, they're not sworn statements. They're really not proof, right? You have an opinion, you're entitled to it, but right now, what's going on between your neighbor and you? There's some issue, the sheriff wouldn't show up, but the other part I'd also like to mention is, if the deputy comes in and says you can't do anything, you really don't have any legal remedies, sheriffs are really trained for criminal law. There's a whole swath of law that comes into civil law. If you talk to an attorney about what can I do about my neighbor pointing something, what it looks like to be a camera into my backyard,
The answer is no. I have not obtained legal counsel.
because there certainly could be some remedies that is offered to you that sheriff deputies, they're doing a great job, but they're really not geared for solving really civil problems. And it really sounds like this is a civil problem. You could have, it sounds like you have a right of privacy issue, a nuisance issue. I don't think a 8-foot fence is going to solve a barking dog. I'm not convinced that you've shown me enough that whatever it is in the side of that guy's house is in fact a camera. Can it reach to your property? Can it reach into the bedroom window? I have no idea what that thing is that is appeared to point at your home. I do recognize it's rattling your cage. I get it, you don't like it. But what I still come back to is, getting a variance for an 8-foot fence, I don't think is going to solve your problem. So convince me otherwise, I'd love to hear it.
For the Freedom of Information Act, I have the sheriff reports where he viewed the live feed of that camera and confirmed it's looking in my home. Would you like to see them?
The video?
No, I have the sheriff's word in writing that he saw the live video feed on the owner's phone. I have copies if you,
The sheriff indicated to you, you have no remedy, criminal remedy for charging him with any kind of criminal conduct.
unless I can prove voyeurism.
And do you think maybe talking to counsel, saying, how do I prove voyeurism?
You know, personally, I really don't want it to come to legal issue, like lawyers. I would rather spend the money than get involved with a fighting match with my neighbor. I really just want this not to drag on. It's been over a year that we've been battling this. And yes, I agree with you. A fence is not going to make a good neighbor. It's not going to make a good dog owner because it's not the dog's fault. It's the dog owner's fault. And it's a waste of money, in my opinion. But it's a good first step before we get lawyers involved, and then it gets really ugly.
All right, we take, as a board, we take granting variances very seriously. So just saying, gee, it might work, it might not. You saw the criteria before.
Yeah.
Susie, if you could pop one up, the area variance. So there's a criteria we have to work with, and I do appreciate it. You filled all that things, all the first through 5 in, what you believe, how that fits. But we have to hear the facts, and how are we going to say then that it wouldn't change the character of the neighborhood? I drove around there. There are no 8-foot fences anywhere in that neighborhood.
No.
You would, if it's granted, you'd be the first one. Arguably, that in and of itself is going to change the character of the neighborhood. 2, can you achieve it by some other means? You have a gut feeling that your privacy rights are being violated. You have an annoyance, there's a dog, now there's 2 dogs. I don't know how a 6 or 8-foot fence is going to make any difference for the dog, so put that one on hold. It's a fence, I get it. The sound of a dog is going to go over a fence. It will. Unless you can show me some proof that an 8-foot fence is going to make a difference from a 6-foot fence, I haven't seen it yet. But you're also talking about a privacy issue. I don't see how all those things that you have talked about, that you've really proven that you have an invasion of privacy. You're annoyed by it, you're bothered by it, you have a neighbor who apparently isn't very friendly with you for whatever reason. This is substantial, an 8-foot fence. So you're not winning on those points. I don't see it. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I think I'm hearing from the rest of the board, there are some concerns about what are you doing with an 8-foot fence, and can you achieve it by some other means? You can respond to those comments that I have. There's really no question buried in there. It's just a serious concern that an 8-foot fence, granting an 8-foot fence, isn't going to solve your problem.
So at one point you said, I have not proven an invasion of my privacy. Is that what I heard correctly?
You have a barking dog, and there's a device, I've seen them, you can get fake security cameras, go to Harbor Freight, go around, all right? I understand you have a sheriff deputy's report through a FOIL saying that they've reviewed the footage.
Yes.
There's not sufficient evidence to show that your privacy rights have been violated. Is that it? Otherwise, the guy would have been arrested. Why isn't he arrested then? If they,
I can't answer that question.
neither can I. I don't know why, if they reviewed it and found some invasion of privacy occurring, your rights being violated, I'm going to presume that the guy would have been arrested. He hasn't. So I don't see where the issue is.
You don't see the
I don't know how an
issue-
8-foot fence is going to solve your problem. That's the nut.
Okay. So the two issues I have are the barking dog and the surveillance camera. I mean, I would believe a sheriff's writing So, I mean, to your comment that it could be a fake, I can hand this to you, and unless this gentleman is lying, it's a working camera, because he saw video footage into my home on the owner's phone. So maybe we could agree that it's a working camera? Can we agree on that one at least?
All right, the way I understand FOIL to work is, it is a report that has already been created.
Yep.
Right, they can't make it up. They can't make, if you ask for something, if it doesn't exist, they can't give it to you.
That's correct.
A police report exists. I agree with that. Police officer wrote something down, said, I reviewed the video footage. Right?
I spoke to Scott, who showed me footage of the camera. The camera faces the opening of his fence and captures interior of Dirk's property. He saw video footage. Unless this officer is lying,
Oh,
we
didn't
can
say
all
that.
agree that it's a working camera.
Didn't say that. So the camera has captured something in your backyard.
Yeah, on my property.
Not into the home, not through the window.
I thought it said into the home. Read that statement again?
Interior of property.
Of the property, not the home.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Okay.
again, I don't know how I prove, because I don't know if that's a pan, tilt, zoom camera. No, it doesn't move. I don't know. It's not.
What's sticking with me is that Matt had asked a question for you is, I think you said, I don't know if the 8-foot fence is really going to solve my problem.
My problem is being, having a bad neighbor and a bad dog owner, and a fence is not going to tell somebody to train their dog. But what a fence will do is stop that dog from seeing every movement on our property and barking at every movement on our property. It's a completely visual barrier. You cannot see through it. You won't see light.
But wouldn't a 6-foot fence do the same thing?
That's correct.
Okay.
For the dog.
For the dog?
For the camera,
Which so far, the deputy only said, looked at the interior of your property.
at position noted in November, not at position noted in January of the camera, which I have documented.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, in your one image to us, there's a large tree that thing looks like it has to go to. Obviously, in 3 months out of the year, that's got leaves, right? Can you even see the camera from your house with that tree fully?
So that's a very old red oak, and you cannot see the second story of my home when that is in full foliage. You can see the first story, the driveway, and into my garage. But that's a good point. At least this gives us some protection when there's leaves on it, at least for our bedroom and our bathroom. I think the 8-foot fence is a better solution than involving legal counsel, honestly. I would rather spend the $12,000 on a family vacation, but I can't put a price on having my children not being recorded when they're outside 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for purposes I do not know.
Now we're dealing in ifs and buts. What I mean by that is you can say, I'm worried about all these bad things happening, but they haven't happened yet.
No?
And being proactive, say, I want an 8-foot fence, because if I don't, my kids are going to be recorded, or they're going to look into my home, or those are a lot of ifs and buts. You don't have anything to establish that camera, if it is invading your privacy in your backyard, not into your home, I don't know the law well enough that you don't have a civil claim against your neighbor for invading your privacy. I don't know the law well enough for a barking dog at 4 whatever a.m. to say that they're invading my quiet enjoyment, and on and on. So putting up an 8-foot fence when you think it might solve your problem, I don't think raises to the level of granting an area variance where we have to fit into the criteria. We can't put ifs and buts in there. We need facts that this is what's happening. And I think you heard from the gentleman before that he wants a security gate. He wants it for secure. I think you saw it. We had a hard time trying to figure out where that fits. And I think you saw the board was rather torn on how is this going to play out. We do take this stuff very seriously.
Oh, I agree with you.
I will say, earlier one of the board members was talking about plants. I mean, one place, one strategically placed tree would, near that fence, would solve all your problems, right? It would be
Dog?
not the, sorry,
Yeah.
not the dog.
Yeah, it does
I
solve.
don't know how to deal with the,
Yeah.
the dog, but in terms of, I agree with Mike, a 50-foot fence, you're still gonna hear that dog. You're still gonna hear it. If you're trying to just obstruct a camera, a tree that doesn't have to be as large as those oaks, it's only gotta be 10 foot tall, strategically placed. You could get one at Lowe's for $60 in the, in the spring. I think would get your peace of mind that they're only recording the tree, not your backyard, because it would be much closer to that camera, and it's going to completely cut off its field of view. The 8-foot, or the fence in the dog, I'm with Mike that it just feels like there's probably a few other things before just erecting a barrier, thinking it's going to solve the problems. Yeah. Go ahead.
Maybe it'll help if I explain the progression. I did actually come to the town and file a complaint for the dog barking. And I was informed that video verification would allow the town to take action. Because, again, it's my word versus somebody else's. We don't believe you kind of thing. I took every opportunity I had to try to record that dog barking in the morning. I had trail cameras set up. They put tarps up. So they took exception to me having a trail camera up that only has a 25-foot trigger, can only see 25 feet, but they don't have an exception having a camera trained on our house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, there's no rationale there. There's no reasoning, so you
it's
can't
just-
reason with them.
I get it. There's some weird tit for tat going
yeah.
on, right? And you put an 8-foot fence, and something else is gonna happen on the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, this isn't something that a 6-pack of beer can solve either, but it just seems like there's this weird tit for tat thing going on. If they were up in your position, they'd probably say, we got this crazy neighbor who's putting trail cameras looking into our backyard. Like, as you can see us as a board, like, there would be these two completely different arguments.
They would probably be in favor of the 8-foot fence. Like, if you think about the two neighbors, they're like, yeah, we would love it. It would give us more privacy for our pool. And you had mentioned the tree, the putting it on the line on their camera. He complained to an officer that my leaves were falling in his yard.
It's okay. Let them complain about that. I mean,
I don't want to put more fuel on the fire if I plant a tree and more leaves fall on his property. I mean, it's just like, you can't reason with an irrational person.
I
And
know.
I'm trying to be rational and saying, I'm willing to invest in a fence that, we never really wanted fences, but I think it's a good first step. Again, progression, starting with a complaint, logging it with the sheriff.
So looking at the camera as it exists, where you're permitted, if you were to get the 8-foot fence, you can't go to the road.
Correct.
So I'm looking at picture number 3 that you provided. Even if there's an 8-foot fence, if your kiddos are playing basketball, that camera's going to pick it up.
Maybe.
No, maybe nothing. You can see it.
The
It
camera,
will.
okay, but remember, look at the location of the camera on January. It's not even pointing at my basketball hoop. It's pointing at my
This
house.
is my point. An 8-foot fence, if they really, really wanted to take pictures of your kids playing basketball, the 8-foot fence isn't going to solve your privacy issues. If they can just click that phone up, or the camera up just a little bit, go right over the top, not move the camera up anywhere, just notch it up just a little bit. And if you don't see them, they say, oh gee, the wind moved it. And now they're maybe looking into the bedroom window, which I don't think they can do it. You need a sophisticated camera, I believe, security camera, to get through a window. The 8-foot fence isn't going to solve your problem. All these things that you've said just doesn't seem to fit into the criteria that we need to satisfy to grant an area variance. So, if you want to think about it, we can vote on it tonight. you can go back and do some more homework and come back the next time around, think about what we said, go talk to an attorney. You got a whole host of things you can do, but I'm not sure if we take a vote tonight, I don't think you're going to get the answer that you'd like. If you have more questions, do you want to think about it? And our applicant who's been patiently waiting, I've suggested to them a couple of times, it's a serious ask, whether it be an area or a use variance. If you need some counsel, go get counsel. This is big stuff. We're not expecting you to know the law frontwards and backwards. There are attorneys out there, this is what they deal in. If it's important to you, get the law straight, get the facts lined up, and then make your presentation. Or you can say, no, I'm good, vote, I'll take it as whatever it is.
Based on the owner's responses in the aggression, which is documented in the police reports, I really would not like to take legal counsel. I would not like this to go to courts, because I see, if I win and somebody says you must take that camera down, my family is going to feel that in one way or another. They start doing things. So I guess what I'll say is, what I'm understanding from my side is, I have an issue with a barking dog and a surveillance camera on my house. And so I asked for an 8-foot fence to try to solve those two problems, and I haven't met the criteria to allow that variance. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right? I'm leaning towards not.
Okay.
I can go down the aisle. Matt, what do you think?
No,
As it sits right now,
I agree with Mike saying it's almost very similar to the discussion we had earlier with the older gentleman in the gate. It is substantial, right? It is, as you go through the code isn't a, the criteria isn't centered around like making me feel safe. There isn't a safety aspect to the criteria. It's, is there a physical or environmental impact that it would have in the neighborhood? Is it self-created? Is there some other method feasible that you can do? I truly believe, after hearing everything, that there are other feasible methods you can do. I know you don't want to take them to court, and that's your opinion, or seek other methods, but these variances run with the land. They're there forever. They're there for when they eventually move, and you got neighbors that you like next door. And I truly believe you're going to have buyer's remorse by spending 12 grand on putting an 8-foot fence up there, and there's going to be something else that you're going to have to do after it. The problem is your neighbor, not the fact that you don't have an 8-foot fence there. There's this weird tit for tat thing going on. But I think as you go through the criteria, which is really meant for, physical things in impacts around your home, it's not meant to, determine whether you're safe or not, or whether somebody's, that's what other legal matters, civil or criminal, are for. So I think as I go through the code, it's really tough to get you to get this particular one and the reasoning behind needing the fence to fit the criteria. I feel for you, I totally do, but I think the criteria isn't geared towards our safety.
Larry, where are you on this?
I'm in agreement with you too.
Leah?
Same.
Okay. So, now, that's just a straw poll. I think you have an idea that as the facts that we have right now, and please don't misunderstand that we don't believe you. I think we're all in agreement, you're in a tough spot. But looking at that criteria, we have to plug in facts on granting or denying the variance. I think we're saying here that an 8-foot fence would change the character of the neighborhood. One element could be, there are no other 8-foot fences in the neighborhood. And an 8-foot fence that's trying to barricade you and your neighbor, I think he even said it really doesn't create good neighbors. So potentially change the character of the neighborhood. Can you achieve this by some reasonable, feasible method? I think we've talked about, have you tried other things? One thing, have you sought legal counsel about solving your privacy issue? Did you haven't? You don't want to spend the money. That's your prerogative. That's your prerogative. It's a reasonable solution.
It wasn't money, though, that I said. It's the repercussions of taking them to court. There's other issues that I have not brought up here of what they've done to our home. Again, I don't have video verification. I'm not bringing them up because I can't prove it in a court of law with an artifact.
Let me just finish, I'll let you talk. What we've heard so far on the facts, on how we're going to plug this stuff in to the criteria, and I want to repeat number one, I've just done that. To one of the elements for, is there a reasonable solution? One could be seeking legal counsel. What are my legal remedies here for my neighbor invading my privacy, right? And another one, shrubs, barricades. Number three, is the area variance requested? Is it substantial? Arguably, an 8-foot fence is substantial. So the first three criteria goes against you.
What metric to use for substantial?
There's case law on that. Is the applicant before you with the bump out that was looking for 1.7 feet when I think what's the rear, it's 15 feet's
40
required.
feet.
40 feet. So he's looking for a very small amount. So in some ways, there's really no objective standard that where 1 inch, and let me rephrase that, 1 foot may be substantial in one case, it's not in another. So we're dealing with 2 more feet on a fence when there's no other fences in the neighborhood that are exceeding 6 feet. An argument can be made that 2 more feet above 6 feet, 8 feet, is substantial.
33%. If you wanted to do the math.
And just, the fence would be viewed along the length, right? You're not viewing it perpendicular to the fence. It runs parallel to the property line, perpendicular to the road. And so we're not doing a full surround. We're only doing one property line. And if you drove around our neighborhood.
Arguably, if you're looking at it perpendicularly, if you are looking at in the straight linear line of that fence, I might agree with you. But if you go one house south, now you can see that 8-foot fence.
What I was getting at,
And I understand there's a debate for it, but right now, this is what the board is feeling on an 8-foot fence is substantial. If you'd like to go seek counsel on how do I handle my privacy rights, what do I do? And/or, gee, I'm getting the indication from the board that they're saying 8 feet, 2 feet above a 6-foot fence is substantial. Is there any case law that I can show them that says they're wrong? That's where we're sitting right now. We're giving you an opportunity. If you want to go back and do some more homework and take our concerns and address them, have at it. If you want us to vote now, we'll do it. Your choice.
what would be a situation where you would approve an 8-foot fence?
It's a case-by-case basis. You're asking us to throw in multiple variables and play a what-ifs, a hypotheticals. We're not going to do that. And that really is asking for a legal opinion, which we can't do as well.
Because I looked, one moment. I looked at meeting minutes as far back as I could go for this board, all the way back to 2020. And there was two, and I'm trying to set a precedent. You guys approved fences not for height, but for setback from the main structure, you know.
That's right.
And people are bringing it up to almost the roadway.
That's
Now I'm thinking,
apples-
in my head, I'm thinking substantial. That seems more substantial than having it 65 feet back. Yes, taller, I agree. But there's nothing running perpendicular to the frontage of the home.
Okay,
But
so
also-
again, it's a case-by-case basis. If you'd like to go, you can go downtown, there's a library that's open for everybody, a law library, do the research all you want. And find it, look, if it says that 6-foot fence where it's permitted, allowing an 8-foot fence for these particular conditions. And what you're talking about, when I mean a case-by-case basis, if you take your very same problem, and if you had a 50-acre lot way up in the hills, and no one can see it, not one neighbor, it probably would be a different outcome. But you live in a neighborhood And is that a cluster development or not? It is. So you live in a neighborhood, houses to the north, south, and even east and west, relatively tight together, is a different scenario than someone that owns 20, 30 acres, and you really can't see it from the road. And we've addressed that, putting structures forward of their homes. If you can't see it, it's going to be a hard argument to say it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. Put a structure in front of your neighbor's home, that's going to change the character of the neighborhood. That's what I mean by a case-by-case basis. You just can't look to say, well, gee, you granted it over there, why aren't you granting it here?
Okay.
So, and I'm sorry, I cut you out. Did you want to?
No, I think it's, no, you hit the nail on the head. It comes down to, you know, if you even just look at the first one, it's kind of the inverse of what he was saying. It's okay, it would be a scenario where it would fit within the character of the neighborhood, such a, that Mike described, or, you know, and you go down to number two, the benefit sought by the applicant can't be achieved by some other method feasible, right? And they were able to convince us that they tried A, B, C, and D. And you'll see these applicants and the ones before you have been in front of us 2, 3, 4, 5 times sometimes to really, you know, get us to understand their particular situation. So we do try to give applicants like the opportunity, like Mike's trying to do, maybe go back, do some homework, kind of understand how we do things as a board, seek counsel. It's just not something, when people come in front of us and try to say, look, I've got a really good case because someone is wronging me, there shouldn't be any problem with having this board approve it. It's I just think sometimes it's a lack of understanding of why the board's here and what we're doing and what governs our decisions. It's not just, like Mike said, we totally feel for you. But it's not how we govern and have to abide by the code. It's not part of the criteria that we use, right? And there may be a way to communicate your particular situation differently that council might be able to help, or might advise you to do some other way.
So you have 3 choices. I left one of them out. You can say, I'm ready for the vote. You can say, gee, I would like to table this so I can go back and do some homework and really figure this out. Or you can say, I want to withdraw. Now,
Yeah.
if a decision is negative, meaning you don't get the variance, I believe you have a year before you can re-up. If you withdraw, your window of time is much shorter. Is it, I'd say 60 days?
I think it's
All right, so you would have 60 days before you can reapply and either refashion or change your argument that would be more beneficial to you.
Okay.
But I feel for applicants when they come in and they feel so strong of it, I really want this, it's my property, I should be able to do whatever I want with it. And that's not entirely true. So like Matt was saying, we'd like to give the applicants as many options as they can so they know. 'Cause I imagine, this is the first time you've gone through this, and there's probably some unknowns. It's like, I didn't know that they were going to do that, or I didn't know, we don't want the I didn't know piece. So to be as informed as possible, I think is the best thing that you can do. If you don't feel like you know all the rules to this particular process, maybe you ought to say, I need to go back and do a little more digging on how does this process work, and what is my best foot forward so that my request for the variance will be granted. Make sense?
It does.
All right. What would you like to do?
I think it makes sense to withdraw.
Okay. If you would be so kind as to just send her a quick email. I want to withdraw it, just so we have it at least on record. But I think it would just be a safe bet if you wouldn't mind. Email it, I want to withdraw my application. Okay?
Understood.
Good. All right. I feel for you, but I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I know, Chris. Thanks for your patience.
Of course.
All right, so, real quick, so what we have in front of us is The use variance was granted, but it was subject to planning approval, and planning was highly recommending that they really didn't like it so close to at the east lot line,
The west.
the west, and they wanted it closer to the existing building, and I think it's no secret, Chris and Rhonda had a meeting about 2 weeks ago, is that about right, more or less, about the situation, saw the front end elevation, and there's about 704 square feet, there it is, of a breezeway connecting building.
The 704 refers to the elevation. It's 1,200 square
It's
foot.
1,200 square feet,
Yes.
okay.
And then the 3840, which was already previously viewed
So
by,
let's talk about that a little bit. So that the square footage for the new building, that's the wrong way to put it.
more of a breezeway that,
Right.
that the mobile graphics, their builder had discussed that with roof lines, it makes things easier to have a breezeway as opposed to just putting that 3,840 square foot building right up against the
So
existing.
12, it's approximately 1,200, it says plus or minus, but it's 1,200 square feet. Plus or minus, what, 5 feet?
Yeah.
You just got to put a number in there someplace.
Sure,
Okay.
5, yeah.
And speaking with Chris and Rhonda, my understanding is that, we'll call it a breezeway, if that's all right, is not to be in conflict with the conditions that were in place from the original, well, from the modified use variance, that it's not going to be for production, it's primarily going to be used for getting the materials from the new building over to where production takes place, right?
Yes, and,
And/or some offices, but
Yes.
not production.
correct.
Okay, good. Then I think we are, for the most part, on the same page.
Okay. I can actually, I can hand out a floor plan.
Sure,
It's,
that'd be great.
it's not official, correct? It's just more of a concept.
We're going to mark this as,
Thank you.
A. I'm going to put a date on it. Today's the 16th. Great, so now we have that in the record. Go ahead. Ready?
You ready?
Yeah.
So, you want me to discuss the,
Yeah, Exhibit A, we had what was already proposed before, the storage area.
Correct.
60 by 64.
yeah, that 60 by 64 building is what was already, you guys had already previously looked at that back in September. And that was what we had brought to the planning board. And then, like you had mentioned, they wanted us to move it eastward to increase that longitudinal buffer space with the residents to the west. And then in doing so, and in discussions with their builder, we had ultimately decided that the best course of action would be to have this breezeway. So as you can see on that would be the north end of it is where the actual breezeway portion is, where the pass-through is, just a hallway.
When you say breezeway, though, it's really breezeway plus, it's really 3 offices and a break room and a utility room, right? So did the breezeway then grow into office space?
Yeah, if you want to.
So upon talking to excuse me, should have got some water. It's sitting for a little while. Upon talking to the builder, the connection of the roof lines, you can see from the other photo, they were really rough. So he said, can we put a hallway or something to join these buildings together? So I started with a hallway, and it was going to be 6 foot wide. And we were also repurposing some space in the front, and we were going to make offices. So this was kind of an opportunity to say, this space could be much more useful. We have to build it anyways. So offices, non-production area in mind was the purpose for expanding.
And so these were offices that are incremental to the overall plan, they didn't exist anywhere else?
Correct.
What I'd like to do is, what we have to do is just some preliminary facts procedurally, we're going to need a motion to modify the variance that was granted back in, just give me a second, September 18th, 23, okay? And then we can go into more detail, but hopefully there's enough that we have in front of us. And while I have it in front of me, on the planning board issue, I reviewed the minutes September 26, 2023, October 24th, 2023, and December 12th, 2023, that are specific to mobile graphics, that verifies the problem of the proposed structure being too close to the residential area and the desire to have it closer to the existing building. So we'll make that part of our, it's coming to me. Our
Findings of
facts.
fact.
Findings of fact, thank you. All right, so if there are questions specific to a motion that we need to have granted to modify the September 18, 2023 resolution. That's what we're trying to go after. So if you have other questions about that, if you're good with it, we can keep moving. All right, Larry?
Help me understand what we're changing, please.
What we need to look at is, we granted the use variance on September 18, 2023.
For the breezeway.
No.
No.
The breezeway, this 30 by 40 structure didn't exist.
Okay.
We only granted a 60 by 64 structure. And we also need to look at the conditions. If you look at condition 4, paragraph 5 and 6, that speak to the requirement of the code enforcement officer doing an inventory and the intensity in really changing the character of the neighborhood. So by, if we grant the motion to consider modifying the September 18th, 2023 use variance, we'll be looking at those elements. Doesn't mean, just by granting the motion, doesn't mean we have to do it. It just, we need a procedure to get us back into taking a look at the September 18th, 2023.
I'm okay.
You're okay, Leah?
Yes.
Adam, you wanted to say something?
Nope.
Okay, all right. So with that, I think we have enough facts then to entertain a motion to review and modify the September 18th, 2023 resolution for mobile graphics. Get a motion?
Motion.
All right, a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Great. All right, so we're there. So now what we're looking at is whether or not the new breezeway, or the new building, 30 by 40, approximately 1,200 square feet, and then taking a look at the conditions to it. So do you have anything else that you want to add, at least for?
Well, just to elaborate on, you had discussed when we went back to the planning board, and you had mentioned a few different meetings that we had gone to. So we did try initially just to move it a little bit and solicit feedback from them and see what they had said. And once again, it was the same thing where they just wanted to see us continue to push that and maximize that longitudinal distance. So that's what ultimately led us to, okay, if we can't have these buildings separated, we're going to move this as far over as we can. And it landed us having to come back to the zoning board, so.
Okay. And part of my discussion, along with Adam and our engineer that we had a couple of weeks ago, the concern that if the board granted it, the modification and of I'm choosing my words carefully because it's already a modification of a use variance, I think 3 times over. So now we're looking at modifying our resolution to modify all those use variances that were going back. one of the concerns and discussions we had is the condition of not only necessarily the inventory, but it was more for the intensity of if the business grows, but yet it doesn't cause any intensity issues where it would change the character of the neighborhood. Where is that line on, if the code enforcement officer comes in and says, yeah, you have 2 more pieces of equipment, but I'm really not changing the intensity of my business, or it's not changing the character of the neighborhood. And when I was hearing that, I'm thinking, well, because Chris had said, well, if my new machine is producing more efficiently, but I'm filling up the same truck, and it's still the same truck, I'm not changing the character of the neighborhood. It's still that one truck coming in and out for that particular day, and I think that's a solid argument. But if it turns out to be 4 and 5 and 6 trucks, where just one was showing up in one day, and the code enforcement officer sees it, I think that's an argument to be made to say, whoa, now you're changing the intensity, changing the character of the neighborhood. Code enforcement officer lets us know. An applicant then has an opportunity to say, well, no, it's really not true. There'll be an opportunity to be heard. So I think that was the general takeaway of why that condition needs to be changed, is to not create any unnecessary hardships on the code enforcement officer and the applicant for complying with the use variance. Is that about to sum it up right, Adam?
Yeah, I would say so.
That sounds accurate to me. Just the simple rewording clarifies intensity. Whereas not so much this machine prints 1 an hour versus 5 an hour, but
Right.
is it changing the character of the neighborhood? And that part wasn't in there before, which made it difficult.
And if I may, just to piggyback off of what
Yeah,
you
go
were
ahead.
saying, also the nature of the business that they're running, it's not like a pizza shop or a hair salon where there's actual physical customers constantly coming and going. And I think that was another thing that we had discussed.
Well, as we talked about before, that the use variance is going to run with the land. So by this board putting a fictional fence around what has been granted, if someday that Mobile Graphics decide to sell it to a pizza shop, we want to make sure that all of those uses, that the intended uses, stay put. If it changes, well, now we have to come, the new applicant has to come and ask for a modification again.
Correct. And it would ultimately change if it was a large pizza shop or something,
Right.
say. They would have to come back.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think at least I've summed it up as best as I can. Matt, questions, concern about where we are and what needs to be done?
I guess my only question is I just find it interesting that the planning board added 3 more offices.
No,
Incremental.
that's not right. No, all that the planning board did was encourage, suggest the applicant to move the building off of that lot line.
Right.
And move it closer as possible. And I think that was the word, move as close as possible to the existing building. It was the applicant that said, well, if you're going to make me move it that close.
I'm going to
then-
add 3 more offices.
No, just connect it.
Oh, but he,
I see it. Let
He
me get there. Just connect it. And when we talked about, don't use it for production, it was, no, it's either just to get the material, but if I can put some offices in there, and it's really not production, then we're still in compliance.
yeah, I get it. I'm just looking at it as, this went over there as 2 buildings. It looked somewhat rural. Now it's, the elevation I saw was relatively industrial monstrosity on, that almost completely fills the, any space that was there. Then at the same time, they've got a limitation on the number of employees to be 9, and then we add 3 offices. That's all. To me, it's just, it is
understood
what
it.
it is.
I understood it that the offices were there. The offices were in the,
You said they were incremental.
Go ahead.
Let him
Come on up.
That's why I asked that question. I asked if these 3
Sure.
offices were incremental, and he said, yes, they were, so I.
So as we have proceeded with everything, I said the hallway, and then we needed a utility area for the sprinkler riser room and all that. So I started just building it out. We did have intentions of putting a couple offices in a tight space. They'd be very small offices. So after looking at this, there was an opportunity there, so I did address that. As far as the people go, 2 of those offices will be my wife and I. I am now in our meeting room right now for my makeshift office, because I just shifted stuff around in there, and it's, you know, it's needed. And if we were looking further, that would be what our next ask would be.
More people?
No, not more
What do you
people.
say, looking
Just a nice office space for ourselves. We don't have that currently. So as adding this on, it opened up that window of
Sure,
opportunity.
no, I get it. I mean, like I said, I'm just surprised at how the project, the direction the project went in. I'm not here to talk about aesthetics.
Yeah,
So-
the planning board did mention one other point, is they asked me, why would you want to go outside if this is an installation? And I said, you know, I gave it some thought, but not enough thought. We take a lot of our stuff, and if we have to take it outside when it's winter time or raining, we're gonna have to do garbage bags and stuff just to bring the vinyl over to put it on a vehicle over there. So, you know, it resonated, and also the water behind it, where the runoff and everything is, we needed to have the bump out, so the buildings had to be pushed. So just a long hallway was like senseless.
I'm okay with it. I guess I still question why we need to have the applicant provide us serial numbers and things like that. At one point, I know we were talking about having a more measurable way of really measuring whether it's activity, not necessarily trying to measure their efficiency. I could, care less how many printers they have.
If I understood it, that predated.
I think it's in our most recent one, right?
Right,
I was
but I think what we
the
were
applicant
looking
to
at,
provide an inventory of equipment and machines used to make, model, and serial number each time there is an upgrade.
and when did the inventory element,
So the inventory element existed, we added the words for the make, model, and serial number to help code enforcement just understand the machines that they were looking at, because they're using terms related to their business to define their equipment, and I don't know what one of those pieces of equipment looks like for, next to the other. So that was more just so code enforcement, because we are required to do that inspection every 3 years, just to help us understand what we're looking at, identify the machine that we're looking at.
Yeah, I just, to me, it feels like it complicates things. And why wouldn't we measure something like cars or trucks leaving the parking lot, or?
Well, right,
something
but
like-
that
something
condition
that's managed with
existed.
puffer
We
strips
just
or-
expounded upon it.
No, I know, I feel like, I'll say I'm just as guilty. I feel like we've overly complicated the regulation of their output here, where we could just simply say, look, the impact to the neighborhood would really be the number of cars and trucks going on and off of that site, or noise, or measurable noise, or, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it-
Something that you can measure, versus, like, code enforcement is gonna now get into, like, makes and models and serial numbers of different printing equipment, and you're gonna have to somehow use that to evaluate if there's been an improvement in their efficiency and output. To me, it'd be much simpler if it was just, the, average number of cars and vehicles per day going on and off.
I think
the
it's just,
site.
it's a benchmark.
In my initial comments, I recommended that the zoning board look at those two conditions because they seemed
Yeah.
odd. But it was discussed, and I believe decided that they should stay, and so because they were staying, I was looking to make it easier to identify those pieces of equipment, which is why I recommended adding that language.
That's my only comment. My only comment is to remove number 6 entirely and change it with some measurement of traffic or vehicles, something that makes sense. And
If it's,
that's all.
all right, if it's a benchmark, and if it turns out to be that the piece of machinery that they currently have, and I think we were talking about widgets, if it produces 100 widgets an hour, and they're certainly entitled to get a new piece of machinery, and the new piece of machinery now produces 1,000 widgets in an hour, and
They
it's
could-
communicated, and that in and of itself doesn't mean that it's creating an increase in intensity, changing the character of the neighborhood. However, if more trucks are going in and out, and that
Right.
piece of equipment is producing 1,000 widgets an hour, where the old one's doing 100, those are elements that's, oh,
Right,
cow,
and you would
now-
measure it by the amount of trucks. So, I mean, you could have something that produces 1,000 an hour, but maybe they're only running it at 200, right? The measure would be how many trucks go in and out versus,
It's a factor, right?
yeah.
I think it's just a benchmark, to have something there. Adam's not going to go in every other month. I think it's what, on a yearly
3 years.
basis, take a look at it every
3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Just something to benchmark and look at it. But I think the big piece of it is if, where there's complaint from the neighbors, or Adam's driving by, it's like, boy, there's more of an influx of trucks going in and out. That is a bigger factor than what kind of machinery do you have in there.
Agree. Yeah, that's my point.
Larry?
Pardon me if I go over a few things, since I wasn't part of this originally. The width of the pass-through is what? The actual pass-through, not the offices. Is that 10 feet or?
Just the hallway that's at the, like I said, it was just more of a concept plan that Chris had drafted up himself to kind of.
Well,
what he was
conceptually, what are you
thinking.
thinking the pass-through has to be?
6-foot doorway.
6-foot door. Okay, and that's big enough to get your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's just stuff that we hand carry.
Okay,
If we have anything large, there's a bay door we could go around.
okay. And how many offices do you have now?
Hold on. Hey,
Yeah,
sorry,
you're gonna
she
have to
can't hear you. You got to come up. Sorry to make you.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's your calisthenics.
We currently have 2 offices. One's well, I took over the meeting room. I consider that my office now, but we have 1 office.
So now you'll have 4 offices in a meeting room?
We have the meeting room, yes. I've taken over the meeting room
But you'll
as
have-
my office right now.
But you'll have the other office? Because you said you had an office and a meeting room.
One of the employees occupies the office. That's been since day one.
I understand that, but you'll have 4 offices and 1 meeting room.
Correct.
So the office and the meeting room won't change what it does now?
Correct.
Okay. And this may be a dumb question. Why not just build the 6-foot pass-through and not a 40-foot?
Not a 40-foot?
Well, you're talking about a 40-foot brief,
Well, that's what we started out looking at it as the hallway, and by the time you put the structure in place, I could make it more usable. We got to put a roof, we got to put a floor, we got to do it. So expanding it made more sense, and with the utility room and stuff in mind as well.
Okay, thank you. Simple, just trying to catch up.
Leah, questions, comments?
Just, I like, I like this new design. It adds those offices, gives you a little more space. With the planning board requesting that you move the building closer, does that give you less, because I don't remember exactly, because the other building was more set back. Is there less room now for any trucks to come in and turn around?
Yeah, I can speak on that. So, like you had mentioned, we originally had it set back further, and we wanted to continue that setback because Chris and Rhonda had felt, it's more aesthetically pleasing if it's set back. And as we moved it over more and more, the first time we kept it at that same distance back. We moved it again, and then there is a stormwater management area directly behind it now. That's why you see that kind of oval looking.
Right.
So we no longer could keep it that far back, especially because
Right.
with the impervious area, we have to maintain that stormwater management area. So, yeah, ultimately, we had to move it forward and connect it to the existing building.
Does it cause, because now this building is more forward of what you originally planned?
Oh, with turning movements and.
Right, with trucks coming in and out of
So we have something
vehicles.
called auto turn at DDS, which is where I work. And I've ran some turning templates on this. I could get some to you if need be. But around the west side of the building, and he has a 30-foot trailer, I kind of ran something similar to what a truck towing a 30-foot trailer would be, and that's not an issue, getting around the side.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Mike? Is that, I was just curious with your proposed layout here, you show a second floor of a little, almost 600 square feet with a bathroom. What's the second? 'Cause I think they discussed square footage based on a single level, and so that would be an additional, near, is that just for storage, or?
It is a mezzanine level, it's going to be open, it's not going to be closed, so the front will actually have a fence that we can take apart, that we could pallet stuff up and,
It's just storage.
yeah.
With the bathrooms up on the second floor?
The bathroom was going to be up on the second floor, because it gives me more storage below. I was originally going to put the utility room there, below it.
No apartments, no living space.
No living
Not
space,
doing that.
no.
Finish your question?
Yes.
Another note is I'm looking at the offices and the questions that we had. I think Chris had mentioned that with some moving things around in the existing building, it would provide some more space, and please correct me if I'm wrong, provide some more space for different kinds of equipment. And I don't remember what, it was a kind of a printer. He said if you have one printer and the printer goes down and
Our cutter, yeah.
your cutter, and if the cutter goes down, it kind of puts your business in a tailspin for quite a while.
Correct.
You had an opportunity to put, if you will, a backup, you could keep your business going without creating an issue with ramping up intensity or creating change in the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah, correct. The primary machine that we cut all our materials with is about 12 years old now, and when it goes down, it bottlenecks us, and it's a rough go. So to have redundancy, we don't have enough floor space right now, currently. So this moving the installation bay out of its current area and some of the sheet goods is going to allow us to put that piece of equipment down. It's a piece of equipment we already have. It wouldn't change our capabilities. It's just going to be a redundant factor, and that would be the first, is a big reason why we're here asking for application.
I know with this, we'll call it the breezeway, the 30 by 40. I don't think it's going to make a difference if it's 30 by 40, 30 by 30, 30 by 20, whatever numbers you want to put in to create that breezeway, as long as production isn't occurring in that space. It's what we looked at, what we granted. Yes, it's more space than what you originally asked for, but we had presumed that planning was going to allow that to happen, and they didn't.
Correct.
So any questions, concerns before we move into looking at the criteria and also looking at the modification of paragraph 4, subparagraph 5 and 6 of paragraph 4?
I do have one more question, if you
Wow.
don't mind. A second cutter would allow you to produce more, even though it's a backup cutter?
Correct.
Theoretically?
Theoretically, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's worth noting that business is going to business to do better. And machines are they're always improving. And if he's going to be producing more, shouldn't hold it against him. But if it's going to put a negative impact on the community and, the intensity piece of it, that's why I think we need to change the subparagraph 5. It's more on the intensity. It's not the number of machines that are in there. And it's not necessarily if he's producing 150 widgets, where last week it was 100. It's how many trucks are going in and out? What's the intensity? What's it look like?
I agree with you. I just wanted to make sure that
But
You
Which
know,
is-
a second cutter would give them the capacity to produce more, theoretically.
Leah, you good? More questions? You good? All right. Anyone from the public want to speak for or against? Don't do that. All right. So let's take a look at the highlighted subparagraph 5 and 6. So the proposed change, and I think it's italicized, so that, I'll just read the whole thing, that the ZBA requires a three-year review of the operation by the code enforcement officer to ensure that there has been no increase in intensity in the use causing a change in the character of the neighborhood. It was described in the testimony given by the applicant.
So it doesn't saying they can't increase their output, it's just saying their output can't have a negative impact on the character of the neighborhood.
Right, right. And I think that should make, I think, both our code enforcement officer and our applicant's life a little easier on allowing the business to grow naturally without changing the character of the neighborhood and not giving our code enforcement officer a big headache trying to figure out what are they doing over there.
So with the addition of that, couldn't we just delete 6?
I don't know if I'd like to delete 6. I think having some measurable.
That's not what you're measuring. Like,
Well-
you're really, the reason why code enforcement's gonna get involved is because someone's noticed that there's 5 more trucks a day going in and out of there, for example, than there used to be. And then they're gonna go, okay, well, what's causing that? They're not gonna care about the serial numbers or what was installed. They're gonna go in and they're gonna have a conversation and say, oh, well, you know, we tripled our output because of this or that. And they're gonna say, that's what happened, right? We don't wanna have them do a, mother, may I buy this extra cutter, you know, and then us pontificate if that particular cutter will, down the road, cause them to have 5 additional trucks come a day.
Okay,
It's a-
but
If there's
so Matt,
nothing for them to look at.
right, why am I doing
no
a 3-year
benchmark,
review?
There's no, this is where we started, and
That's why I'm saying it'd be more, again,
But Matt,
putting buffer strips in the,
What,
in the
what's
entrance.
code enforcement gonna review every 3 years then?
Again, for, okay, every 3 years for a month or so, put buffer strips out in front of there and measure the number of vehicles going in and out on an average. On a day, something like that that's measurable, because that's really the impact of the neighborhood. We don't care what's inside to a certain extent.
I think you do.
It's really, no, but we care, we've said it, causing a change in the character of the neighborhood. So if we want to measure something, measure what the actual change to the neighborhood would be, which in my opinion would be, have to be traffic or noise level. Go out there with an SPL meter 50 feet away from their building.
That'll be a cost incurred by the town, I'm not gonna, anyway.
an inventory is a benchmark where they say, here's a document that says, here's the equipment that they have. And it should be identified easy enough to look at, say, this is what this piece of equipment does. It makes 1,000 widgets per hour. And if 3 years from now, it's like, wow, they got 3 of those things in now.
It's an indicator.
That's one factor, along with, I better go look, oh, now there's more trucks going in. So now you have 2 pieces.
But now you're not
And-
gonna know if there's more trucks or not, because you didn't measure how many trucks were going in and out the 3 years before.
The equipment will be an indicator that we should be looking at.
It'll give
I don't know,
cause.
I guess I think about it differently. To me, it's overburdening to have them have to prove that, oh, this piece of equipment is gonna allow us to produce more. Oh, am I gonna get in trouble with the town because this has the ability to produce more? And then because it can produce more, we're gonna launch some kind of investigation on how many trucks are going in there. We're gonna say, oh,
But
there's
you
these
just
trucks, but we had
suggested
no
we
benchmark
should
before.
do that we should do that investigation every 3 years anyway.
I would say just do the measurement. No investigate, I mean, you wouldn't care about serial numbers or output or number of widgets per minute. What we would care about is the traffic. I mean, they
didn't
put
get an
buffer strips all
indication.
over the place when
I didn't get an indication from the applicant that that was going to be a headache. That they know what equipment they have there in the first place. It's not hundreds and hundreds of pieces of equipment. It's I don't know how many pieces, but it's a number of pieces of equipment that they take the inventory. They should do it anyway for insurance purposes, because I shouldn't say it, but it happened once already. If something happens, they have to put in a claim to say, here's all the pieces of equipment that we had.
I get it, but then we're gonna leave it on code enforcement to say, I'm just playing this out. Code enforcement is gonna say, oh, they got this, they've added 4 new things. I don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do with that. How in my mind does that equate to an impact in the character of the neighborhood, other than saying, you guys can now produce more, therefore you must be negatively impacting the character of the neighborhood?
That review is followed up with a report to the zoning board, who would then make the decision.
I wouldn't make that decision. How would I do that? I would say, okay, well, how many new trucks are gonna go? And you're gonna say, we didn't measure the trucks. We just know that there's additional equipment, and I'm gonna have to decide,
Maybe
no,
we
you
should
can't
measure
buy
the
that
truck.
extra cutter, go return it. I mean, I'm just playing it out. It's
they
just silly
have-
to me. I'll stop, but it's completely silly to me. I'm sure if the applicant would say the same thing, but I know they wanna get what they wanna get, and they've already agreed to it, but it's totally silly. To me, it's an overreach, that's all. Done. I'm okay with it without it.
I'll disagree with you.
Okay.
Because I just think the inventory is fine. And it just allows you to match up what they had, what they have now, and whatever the change is can be a discussion, or it can be an investigation, or whatever it has to be. But,
You own the business, I'm sure you would really love to have that discussion every 3 years after you've bought everything.
This condition has existed, though I'm just asking for more specific information. They had to provide an inventory of equipment from the original modification, so we just made it more detailed so that code enforcement, when I go there and they say, we have 7, I don't know, we have 4 cutters and 7 printers that, large format print, I don't necessarily know what those pieces of equipment look like. It's just to help us identify, verify.
But it would be helpful for you to know that this piece of equipment that was there is not there now, and this equipment is.
And should
And
we
you'll
have a-
only know that by the serial number.
Should we have a question about intensity, then we could research that piece of equipment based on the make model number.
I think too, it kind of helps with the fact that the new building is not for production too, so it kind of gives code enforcement a baseline of where the production is, and we're not putting that into the new part of the building. That's just my opinion. I don't really have a say, but
You guys care?
They've agreed to it in the past, and maybe I'm just,
I agree it's confusing. I agree. When I first did it, the resolution was tough to say, because my interpretation was I would have to ask a board for, I went to a trade show, and it's a trade show special, I want to buy this piece of equipment, and I have to ask a board if it's okay if I buy this equipment for my business. In fact, it hasn't been treated like that. It's more stay on course with what you're doing, and, we're allowing your business to grow and develop, but you're not all of a sudden have a paint booth, that you're doing something completely different than you used to do. So I think the inventory steers them into that categories, because they can look up and say, yes, it's a large format printer, yes, it's a cutter that cuts plastics that they print on with that printer, or it's a roll-to-roll printer. They've had most of the time when we replace equipment, it's new technology, it's just updating, and warranties go, and they stop selling ink, actually. The biggest problem I have is my printer's fine, but HP will stop selling the ink because they want you to buy that printer. So the upgrades and stuff are forced upon us. But we are a graphics company, and that's what we're staying with. We're not, but if it were a paint booth, or if it were we're laser cutting everything crazy now or something, a different apparatus that's really going to change our dynamic of business, that's how I interpret that, and that's why it's okay with me to say, okay, the equipment I have, and it's in the wheelhouse of what we do today. And I think that provides that information. As far as the volume goes, it doesn't provide the information there, because I could have 10 pieces on the floor and we're still not producing. So to me, it's more of an intent to the neighborhood. I've been here for 20 years successful because we don't ruffle feathers, we don't step out of bounds, we don't go do things loud at night, we care about the environment we're in, we care about our neighbors having a complaint. And I think if we keep that and conduct business the way we have been, this will be the last meeting we have on.
On a
Oh, unless,
You mentioned
unless.
something, and it's
Yeah.
worth noting, having those pieces of equipment identified. Your point, you said, in our wheelhouse. If all those pieces of equipment are in the wheelhouse of print shop and graphics, right, all right? If he gets a new one, probably it's like, well, this one doesn't work anymore, out it goes. Fine. If all of a sudden pizza ovens start showing up, and it's like, what are you doing with pizza ovens? That's not what you said you were gonna do
Right.
with the place. That's a problem. That potentially can change the character of the neighborhood and the intensity. You don't plan on doing it, but it keeps you honest. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to do it. Naturally grow without changing the intensity and the character of the neighborhood. Having the inventory, which you probably got to do anyway, helps both sides out.
Nothing in this requires prior approval from either us or the code for them to purchase a piece of equipment.
No,
Okay.
They've got to think twice before they buy it, though.
I don't think so.
Yes, yeah. In that token, sure, if we want to redirect the business and start a big screen print shirt operation or something like that, could change the nature of what we're doing, and I could be arguing in front of you that, no, we're still a graphics company, but I'd be brought back in here to prove the case, to be heard, you know, if I did a legitimate lateral move or not, and.
After
what
you've
we're doing.
already bought it and started doing it, and we would be here going, well, I'm not going to take your T-shirt printer away. That's all.
And that's where 5 kicks in, because as described in the testimony given by the applicant, what he's not a T-shirt print shop. It's
print
not a
shop.
pizza shop.
He could print on T-shirts, why couldn't he?
No.
I've done it before, and I don't want to do it again, so.
Anyways, I'll agree to disagree. It's okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I think 5 and 6 go
like to be
hand in
regulated.
hand, and it's a good validation for you to have that you know that the town is in agreement, you know, with what you have and your business.
Yeah.
I think it's more for your benefit, too.
The leading indicator would be I got new space, and all of a sudden, there's a piece of equipment sitting in the new space. Well, you know, to me, that would be a definite red flag, and he'd be waving his flags quick, saying, okay, this agreement was storage and installations. Why is that piece of equipment in this area? You're coming into new territory. So the walkthrough provides that. So I have to abide by, you know, the new rules to the new building and the breezeway.
Okay, so as we sit right now, not there yet, but entertaining a motion for approval, as we've talked about tonight, granting a modification of the use variance to allow the 1,200 square foot breezeway is what we've been calling it, and changing subparagraph, 4, subparagraph 5 and 6. It's really 5 we're looking at, with the language, there be no increase in intensity of use causing a change in the character of the neighborhood that was described in the testimony given by the applicant. Leah, you're good with that? Because we're going to need a supermajority, I think, because of what the county planning board recommended in denial. So you're okay with it?
Yes.
Larry, you okay? All right, so we're going to need 4 votes. Then, unless you have something else you want to add or say? No. That's good. I would entertain a motion for approval of granting the modification of the use variance that was granted on September 18th, 2023, with the addition of a construction of a 1,200 square foot building and modification of paragraph 4, subparagraph 5 as so stated.
Your wording there, that first paragraph should be the overall square footage of both buildings, which would be 5,040 square feet.
All right, that's a good note. What's the number?
5,040, 5040.
5040.
Then that,
Total square feet.
Yep, for the first paragraph there, that's highlighted, and then paragraph 3, subparagraph C.
Yep, that's highlighted. Paragraph 3, subparagraph 3C. That should be the same.
That square footage would be the 540 minus the pre-existing barn, so the new total would be 2,619 square feet.
2619?
Yes, 2619.
Okay. All right. Everything else good, Adam?
Yes.
All right, Ben, would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have anything else before the board? Hearing nothing.
No, about the previous applicant, is it okay to speak?
Sure.
If he put in a 6-foot fence with the tree, code allows 6-foot fence, but his variance was to go to 8 feet, is that correct?
You can have a 6-foot fence.
But it wasn't suggested back to him to say you could have a does he well know that?
He's aware.
Okay, so he's really fighting for that extra 2 feet?
Yes.
Because I thought the point with planting an evergreen tree behind the fence would have, if that was
Someone there to
caught in his
block it.
head, would have been like, that's a better barrier for the camera than the fence,
Yeah.
you know? But I didn't know.
You're never not gonna hear that dog, or two dogs now.
That's where the evergreen would help that a little bit.
Yeah.
More than the fence.
Yeah, because
No
that's
problem with a lot.
where I had lived previously. They took down all the trees, put a fence, and they had a dog, and you
Leah,
heard the dog.
Leah,
It's amazing what.
It's just
Thank
on
you.
the
Sorry to interrupt.
record. Sorry.
Yeah, close the meeting.
all right. Motion to adjourn the meeting. Close it.
Motion to adjourn.
You all in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Thanks so much.
I would have waited for that if I was more adverse to the meeting.